What would you think if I told you that the most magnetic women are not the loudest, the most visible, or even the most conventionally beautiful? They are the ones who carry something far rarer, a presence that cannot be touched, only felt, a softness that is not weakness but precision, a detachment that is not apathy but sovereignty. These women do not seduce with tactics or chase with fear. They simply are, and in that being the world rearranges itself around them. Carl Jung would say they are in contact with their self, the capital S self that holds all opposites, all wounds, all potential. These women are not obsessed with being chosen, they are far too preoccupied with choosing themselves, and in doing so, they activate something ancient in the collective unconscious of those who meet them, a longing, a hunger, a reverence. They are not perfect, but they are whole, and wholeness is far more powerful than perfection. You see, attraction is not about performance, it is about embodiment. And these women, they embody their truth so fully that the air changes when they enter a room. They speak softly, but not weakly. They say little, but mean much. Their energy is like poetry. Not everyone understands it, but no one forgets it. They do not need to advertise their worth. They walk in it. They don't audition for affection. They accept or reject it. Their standards are not rules. They are frequencies. If you can't match it, you fade from their field. Because to them, attraction is not conquest, it is resonance, a meeting of energy, not a negotiation of value. And when you ask what makes them so magnetic, you won't find the answer in their hair or their hips or their lips. You'll find it in the subtle details, the way they pause before responding, the way they don't fill silences, the way their eyes rest rather than chase. These women have mastered the art of stillness, not the stillness of repression, but the stillness of clarity. They have no desire to be everything to everyone. They are already everything to themselves. This kind of woman doesn't just happen, she is forged. She has cried on cold bathroom floors. She has begged the universe for answers that never came. She has bent herself into shapes no soul should ever assume, all in the name of being loved. And then, one day, she stopped. She stopped apologizing for her needs. She stopped shrinking to fit someone else's idea of softness. She stopped explaining her boundaries like they were open for debate. She began to see herself through new eyes, not the gaze of a lover, but the mirror of the soul. And in that reflection, she did not find a fixer-upper. She found a force of nature. That was the beginning. From there, she began to move differently. She no longer rushed to prove her value. She let the silence do the heavy lifting. She no longer chased, she allowed. And in that allowing, she became irresistible. Because men, too, even those who have not done their work, sense the difference. They may not have the language for it, but they feel it in their bones. This woman will not be conquered. She will not bend to be kept. She does not run from loneliness. She does not fear absence. She will not barter her soul for breadcrumbs. And that kind of power, the quiet, spiritual kind, is the most dangerous of all. It calls men into their own shadows, forces them to look at the ways they seek to control instead of connect, to dominate instead of understand, to consume instead of revere. Not all can meet her there, and she knows it. That's why she doesn't make herself small for those who aren't ready. She walks her path. And if someone is meant to walk beside her, they will rise to meet her, not with promises, but with presence, not with flattery, but with depth. And if they don't, she keeps walking, because her power does not lie in who wants her. It lies in who she is when no one is watching, when the phone doesn't ring, when the bed is cold, when the world forgets her name. That's when her magnetism is born, in the silence, in the solitude, in the sacred choice to honor herself, even when no one else does. That is the woman who attracts without trying. She attracts not because she seeks to be seen, but because she no longer needs to hide. This woman has faced herself in ways others cannot bear. She has wandered through the deserts of abandonment, sat still beneath the weight of rejection, and stared down the echoing emptiness that so many try to escape by chasing love. But she did not run. She stayed. She breathed through the pain, and in doing so she became whole. Wholeness is magnetic, not because it screams, but because it whispers truth in a world built on noise. Carl Jung would call this woman individuated, not fragmented by the roles society offered her, but reassembled into something more ancient, more real. She no longer plays the martyr. no longer performs the seductress, no longer carries the mother wound or the maiden's need to be adored. She has integrated her shadows, befriended her pain, and now she walks like someone who knows no one is coming to save me, and I no longer need them to. This terrifies those who live in dependency, because to stand in one's own energy, unhooked from external validation, is to become sovereign. And sovereignty cannot be seduced, manipulated, or controlled. Men sense this. Some will be drawn to her like moths to flame, not understanding why they can't stop thinking about her. It's not because of what she gives, it's because of what she withholds, not from cruelty, but from discernment. She doesn't chase because she knows what's meant for her doesn't require chasing. She doesn't over-explain because her energy speaks in ways words cannot. She doesn't compete because she's not in the arena to be chosen. She's the one who chooses. This woman has redefined what it means to be wanted. She no longer equates desire with worth. She understands the difference between being desired and being respected, between being chased and being cherished, between attraction and alignment. She no longer lets chemistry convince her of compatibility. She moves slowly now, not out of fear but out of reverence, for her peace, for her body, for her spirit. She listens to the language of her intuition, even when it contradicts her feelings, especially then, because she has learned the hard way that feelings without discernment are dangerous. And so she pauses, she watches, she observes not just how a man speaks, but how he shows up when no one's watching. She doesn't fall for potential, she pays attention to patterns. That is one of her most powerful habits. She doesn't give her heart to the future. She lives in the present. And if the present doesn't honor her, she leaves. Not dramatically, not vindictively, but quietly, like someone whose soul is too full to bargain for crumbs. She no longer needs to prove her value. That was a younger version of her, the one who twisted herself into versions more likable, more lovable, more digestible. That woman is gone now. The woman who stands here today is not seeking to be understood. She is seeking to be met. Energetically, spiritually, emotionally, and if you cannot meet her there, she will not lower herself. Not because she thinks she's better, but because she's finally learned to love herself enough not to abandon herself for connection. She knows that attention is not affection, that possession is not partnership, that proximity is not presence. She understands the deep difference between a man who wants to be around her and a man who wants to know her. And most cannot, not because she is too much, but because she demands too much truth. To be with her is to feel the mirror she holds, not of judgment, but of clarity. And clarity to those who have not done their shadow work feels like exposure. That's why so many project onto her, idolize her, demonize her, try to label her, tame her, but she cannot be named by those who have not named themselves, because she is not an archetype built for your comfort. She is a force born of inner alignment. She no longer plays the game of pretending to be less so someone can feel like more. She no longer walks into rooms wondering if she's good enough. She enters asking if the room is good enough for her peace. That energy, subtle, unwavering, unapologetic, is why she attracts without effort. Because in a world where everyone is performing, her presence feels like truth. Truth is the rarest form of intimacy, and that is what she offers. Not performance, not perfection, but presence. Raw, grounded, inconvenient truth. She is not the woman who smooths over discomfort to keep the peace. She is the woman who sits with it, breathes through it, and invites you to meet her in the tension. Because she knows growth lives there, depth lives there, real love lives there. This is why she cannot be pursued by men who only know how to conquer. She is not something to win, she is something to witness. And witnessing requires stillness, not strategy. Most have never learned to be still with a woman like this. They come with their armor, their charm, their curated personas, but she sees through all of it, not out of cynicism, but because she has worn those masks too. She recognizes the hunger beneath the words, the longing beneath the bravado. She sees the scared boy in the grown man's body, and she does not judge him, but she will not carry him. Because another of her powerful habits is this: she no longer rescues people from themselves. She holds space, but she does not fix. She understands the difference between love and codependency, between compassion and self-sacrifice, between connection and enmeshment. She has learned that love without self-respect is just fear in disguise. And so she no longer gives from depletion. She gives from overflow. Her love is not a contract, not a transaction, not a survival tactic. It is a sacred offering, and it must be met with reverence, not entitlement. This makes her dangerous in the eyes of the unhealed, because she will not chase, not plead, not bend. Her standards are not up for debate. They are not there to control. They are there to protect. Protect what? Her peace, her wholeness, the sanctuary she built within herself after years of confusing chaos for chemistry. She knows now peace is the attraction, not the drama, not the push-pull, not the adrenaline of emotional confusion. She doesn't want the high, she wants the depth. She wants a love that feels like home, not a roller coaster, a love that honors, not entertains, a love that expands, not consumes. And this is what makes her unforgettable. Not because she's always available, but because her presence lingers in the soul of anyone who's met her, especially in those who couldn't rise to meet her. She becomes their mirror, their muse, their mystery, not because she played hard to get, but because she became hard to reach without ever lifting a finger, because to reach her you must first reach yourself, and most are still running from that very task, so they remember her. In the quiet, in the spaces where shallow validation no longer satisfies, in the arms of the next, and the next, and the next, they remember the one who didn't just touch their body but revealed their soul. And she is not thinking about who misses her. She is not replaying old conversations or decoding silent messages. She is living fully, presently, passionately, not always joyfully, not always gracefully, but always truthfully, because her magnetism is not performative. It's internal. It's in the way she says no without apology, in the way she enjoys her own company more than the presence of half-hearted affection, in the way she holds herself in sadness without collapsing into despair, in the way she celebrates her own becoming. That is what people feel when they meet her, even if they can't explain it. They feel her integration, her freedom, her refusal to collapse into roles just to be loved. And yes, she may spend many nights alone, but those nights are filled with peace, with softness, with self-intimacy. She does not fear her own company. She thrives in it, because she has built a relationship with herself that no one can take away. That is the foundation of her power. And it is why, without effort, without performance, without manipulation, she draws people in, not with noise, but with presence. She does not chase, and yet she is pursued, but not by the masses. Only by those attuned enough to feel her frequency, those who have walked through their own shadows, who have faced the monsters of ego, fear, and falsehood, and emerged humbled, clear, aware, because only they will recognize her for what she truly is, a woman who has integrated, not perfect, never that, but real. And in a world addicted to illusion, real is revolutionary. This kind of woman doesn't just draw attention, she awakens something. In men, in women, in the collective, something ancient, something aching, a memory of wholeness before performance, a glimpse of what it means to be fully, dangerously, beautifully human. She is not a fantasy, she is a mirror, and if you cannot meet your own reflection, you will call her too much, too distant, too intense, too hard to reach. You will call her everything except what she is, an invitation to rise, to return, to remember. Her habits are not tricks, they are not strategies. They are the natural byproduct of a woman who has become, a woman who has sat beside the version of herself who begged for love and said, "I will not abandon you again." A woman who no longer flinches in the face of disinterest because her value isn't tethered to validation. A woman who no longer waits to be chosen because she knows, "I am the chooser now." And yes, her solitude may confuse others, her silence may unsettle, her softness may be mistaken for weakness until you feel the steel underneath. But that's part of her mystery. She cannot be labeled, she cannot be predicted, because she is not performing, she is not editing her expression to soothe your perception. She is simply being, and in that being there is a quiet kind of rebellion. A woman who walks alone, not because she has to, but because she can. A woman who laughs without permission, who cries without shame, who walks away without guilt, who stays only where her nervous system feels safe, not where her inner child begs for scraps. She doesn't fall in love with potential anymore. She falls in love with energy, with presence, with peace, and most of all, with herself. Because that's the real secret of women who attract without trying. They have already chosen themselves fully, fiercely, without flinching, and now they live in alignment with their values, with their boundaries, with their essence. They no longer chase what isn't theirs. They no longer force what doesn't flow. They no longer beg to be seen because they see themselves. So if a man enters her life, he must come correct. He must come clean. He must come whole. Not perfect, but present. Because she has no more time to raise men who refuse to raise themselves. She has no more interest in explaining her worth. She no longer doubts her power. And that is why she is so magnetic. Her life is the altar. Her peace is the prayer. Her presence is the offering. And her love is not something you earn. It is something you match. And if you cannot, she walks on, not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of alignment. Because the woman who attracts without trying doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't crumble. She chooses. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.